You are lying next to her, in the same room, in the same bed where you have shared so many nights. But today, like in recent months, there is an invisible abyss between the two of you. You try to get closer, a touch on her shoulder, a kiss on her neck. She pulls away. There is always an excuse: she's tired, she has a headache, she needs to wake up early. And you accept it. Again. Because you still believe it's just a phase, that it will pass soon, that she will go back to being who she was. But deep down, one corrosive question won't leave your mind: why doesn't she desire me anymore? This scenario is not fictional. It is the silent reality of thousands of men who wake up every day next to a woman who seems to have completely erased sexual interest in them. We are not talking about a difficult week or a brief period of passing stress. We are talking about months, sometimes years, of constant rejection, of intimacy that evaporates without a clear explanation, of a relationship that technically still exists, but that has already died emotionally. The first thing you need to understand is this: sexual refusal is not the problem. It is merely the visible symptom of something much deeper happening beneath the surface. When a woman stops feeling attraction for her partner, it's not because she woke up one day and arbitrarily decided to cut sex out of the relationship. Female desire doesn't work like that. It doesn't disappear out of nowhere. It is slowly murdered day after day, by a series of factors that most men can't see until it's too late. Let's be direct: you are probably confusing things. You think the problem is the lack of sex, so you try to fix it by being more romantic, buying flowers, making dinners, giving more compliments. But nothing changes. She remains distant, cold, uninterested. And you begin to feel invisible, rejected, inadequate. Your self-esteem starts to crack. You wonder if you're attractive enough, if you're doing something wrong, if there is someone else. The doubts become obsessive. And while you consume yourself internally, she remains indifferent, as if you were just another piece of furniture in the house. What is really happening is that she has already checked out of the relationship emotionally. Not necessarily in a conscious or premeditated way, but her desire for you has been extinguished. And when desire dies in a relationship, it takes with it much more than sex. It takes physical affection, deep conversations, quality time, genuine interest. What remains is an empty shell, two people sharing the same space, but living parallel lives that never meet. Here's what no one tells you: there are clear signs that differentiate a difficult phase from a relationship in terminal collapse. When it's temporary, work stress, health problems, hormonal issues, there is still communication. She explains what she's feeling, shows that she cares about the impact this has on you, looks for ways to compensate for the lack of physical intimacy with other demonstrations of affection. You talk about the problem and work together to get through that moment. But when the refusal is chronic, the pattern is completely different. There is no real dialogue. Just vague, generic excuses that change from week to week, but never lead to any solution. I'm tired turns into I'm not in the mood, which turns into you only think about that, which turns into leave me alone. The problem is always pushed to tomorrow, to next week, to when things get better. But things never get better. Because she doesn't want them to. She has already given up. She just hasn't had the courage to tell you yet. And there's more: the absence of sex rarely comes alone. It is accompanied by a series of other behaviors that, when you stop to observe them, paint a devastating picture. She no longer touches you casually. She doesn't hold your hand. She doesn't hug you when she gets home. She doesn't really kiss you, only those quick, mechanical kisses that mean absolutely nothing. You don't talk about important things anymore. She no longer shares her day, her thoughts, her fears and dreams. You've become a stranger who lives in the same house. Look at your relationship right now and answer honestly: how long has it been since you had a real conversation? Not those about bills to pay or household chores, but a conversation where you truly connect, where you feel close, where there is emotional intimacy. If you're having trouble remembering, that's already your answer. The truth no one wants to hear is that, in many of these cases, sexual refusal functions as an instrument of control. Not necessarily in a Machiavellian or calculated way, but the result is the same. You are placed in a position of constant need, begging for crumbs of attention, while she accumulates all the power in the relationship. You start negotiating affection. You start trying to earn intimacy by being more helpful, more understanding, more patient. And the more you lower yourself, the less she respects you. The less she respects you, the less she desires you. It's a cycle that only goes in one direction: downward. If you're enjoying this content and want to fully understand what is destroying attraction in your relationship, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And leave a comment saying which city or country you're watching from. I want to know how far this message is reaching and how many men are facing exactly this right now. The psychological impact of living for months or years being constantly rejected by the person who should desire you is brutal. Your self-esteem collapses. You begin to question your value as a man, as a partner, as a human being. Every no is a blow to your confidence. Every time she pulls away from your touch is a confirmation that you are no longer enough. And worst of all, you can't talk about it with anyone, because there is a huge social stigma surrounding men who suffer sexual rejection within their own relationships. Society tells you to be patient, to be understanding, to give space. And you do it. Months turning into years of infinite patience, waiting for something to magically change. But here is what no one explains to you. This patience you think is emotional maturity is, in fact, killing any chance of recovering her desire. Because you are not being patient, you are being invisible. You are accepting crumbs and calling it love. Let's talk about what really extinguishes female attraction. These are not abstract theories or pop psychology. They are concrete patterns observed in hundreds of relationships that have reached this point of collapse. The first and most devastating is the total loss of polarity. You stopped being a man she admires and became someone she manages. You ask permission for everything, consult her opinion before any decision, avoid conflict at all costs. You think you are being an evolved partner, but what she sees is someone without a backbone. Women do not feel attraction to men they can completely control. This is not sexism, it is basic biology of attraction. When you become too predictable, too pliable, too available, the mystery disappears. And with the mystery, desire goes away. She knows exactly how you will react to any situation. She knows you will accept any excuse. She knows you will never really confront her or set boundaries. And unconsciously, that makes you completely uninteresting to her. The second factor is even more painful to acknowledge. You stopped investing in yourself. Look in the mirror right now and be brutally honest. Are you in the best shape of your life, or did you let your body go? Do you still have ambitions, projects, goals that make your eyes light up, or did you completely settle? Do you cultivate friendships, hobbies, a life of your own outside the relationship, or did she become your entire universe? When a man stops evolving, growing, being interesting, he stops being attractive. It's that simple. She met you a certain way. You were probably more confident, more independent, more focused on building something. You had a life that attracted her. But over time, you kept molding yourself more and more into what you thought she wanted. You gave up your interests, your friends, your dreams. You became a diluted version of who you were. And now she looks at you and no longer sees the man she fell in love with. She sees someone who gave up on himself. Here is something that will make you uncomfortable, but needs to be said. While she shows no interest in you, observe where her energy is being directed. She is always too tired for you, but can spend hours on her phone, smiling at the screen with an enthusiasm you haven't seen in months. She doesn't have time for dinner with you, but finds time to go out with friends every week. She doesn't have energy for intimacy, but manages to get elaborately dressed when she goes anywhere that doesn't involve you. This doesn't necessarily mean there is another person physically, but there is an emotional investment being made somewhere else. It might be on social media, receiving validation from strangers. It might be in conversations with coworkers who make her feel interesting again. It might simply be in a mental fantasy of what life would be like without you. The point is, her attention, her vital energy, her desire still exist. They are just no longer directed at you. And when you realize this, the pain is unbearable. Because it confirms that the problem is not that she lost her libido or is going through a difficult phase. The problem is that she lost attraction specifically for you. She is still capable of feeling desire, of getting excited, of being interested. You are the one who no longer awakens that in her. Now let's talk about the temptation that practically every man in this situation falls into, trying to buy desire back. You intensify romantic gestures, bring gifts, plan elaborate surprises, do even more household chores, try to be even more understanding and available. You think that if you demonstrate enough value, if you prove how much you care, she will finally see you again and desire will return. But exactly the opposite happens. Every desperate gesture of reconquest only confirms to her that you are in an inferior position. You are negotiating, begging, lowering yourself. And the more you do this, the more repulsion she feels. Because desire is not rational. You do not convince a woman to desire you through logic or good behavior. Desire is visceral, instinctive, primitive. And it responds to perceived value, not demonstrated effort. Think about how it was at the beginning of the relationship. You didn't need to beg for her attention. You didn't buy affection with grand gestures. You simply desired each other because there was balance, polarity, natural sexual tension. What changed is not that she stopped being capable of feeling desire. What changed was the power dynamic between you. And power, in this context, has nothing to do with domination or control. It has to do with perceived value. When you are constantly chasing, she is constantly running away. When you are always available, she never misses you. When you accept any treatment, she completely loses respect. And without respect, there is no attraction. There never was, there never will be. You can be the kindest, most helpful, most dedicated man in the world. If she doesn't respect you, she will not desire you. Period. The question you should be asking is not how do I make her desire me again? The correct question is, why am I still accepting being treated like this? Because that is the real issue. At some point along this path, you decided that being constantly rejected was better than being alone. You decided that crumbs of attention were enough. You decided that your dignity was worth less than the security of having someone by your side, even if that person does not truly want you. There is a breaking point that happens to every man who lives in this situation long enough. It is not a calculated or planned moment. It is an internal, visceral rupture, when something simply snaps inside you. It may come after yet another night of rejection. It may happen when you see her genuinely laughing on the phone with someone else while she has barely looked at you for weeks. It may happen when you look at yourself in the mirror and no longer recognize the man standing there. But that moment comes. And when it does, you finally understand something fundamental. You cannot negotiate desire. You spent months, maybe years, trying to do everything right. Being more attentive, more present, more understanding. You read articles, watched videos, maybe even suggested couples therapy. You believed that if you were patient enough, devoted enough, loving enough, she would eventually see you the way she did before. But she didn't. And she won't. Not while you remain in this position of emotional pleading. Here is the hardest and most liberating truth you will hear. The only change that occasionally reverses this situation has nothing to do with flowers, romantic dinners, or promises to change. The only thing that sometimes reignites female desire is when the man completely stops chasing, regains his self-worth, and repositions himself in the relationship. Not as a manipulative strategy, but as a genuine transformation of who he is and what he accepts. This means stopping begging for attention. It means redirecting all that energy you are wasting trying to win over someone who does not want to be won over and investing it exclusively in yourself. Going back to the gym, not to impress her, but because you deserve to be in the best shape of your life. Resuming projects and ambitions you abandoned, not to provoke jealousy, but because your life cannot revolve around someone who treats you with indifference. Rebuilding your social life, your hobbies, your emotional independence. And here's what happens when you do this for real, not as a psychological trick, but as an actual change. Either she realizes she is losing you and desire returns because you once again become the man she cannot completely control, or nothing changes and you at least get your life back. In both scenarios, you win. Because the worst possible situation is the one you are in now, giving everything you have to someone who does not value you and losing yourself completely in the process. But there is a side of this story that we need to confront directly, because avoiding it will not make it disappear. In a significant percentage of these cases, the woman who has completely lost sexual interest in her partner has already found or is seeking that interest elsewhere. We are not necessarily talking about physical cheating already consummated, although that also happens. We are talking about emotional investment, directed attention, sexual energy that still exists but is no longer reserved for you. The signs are always the same. The phone that used to be left lying around anywhere is now always face down, protected by passwords you don't know. The notifications she silences when she is near you but that come back when she walks away. The sudden changes in appearance and personal care that have nothing to do with you. The energy and sparkle in her eyes that appear when she is talking to certain people but disappear completely when she looks at you. You feel this. Deep down, you always knew. But you chose to believe the excuses because the truth is unbearable. It is easier to believe that she is stressed, tired, going through a phase, than to accept that she has already emotionally checked out of the relationship and may be channeling her attention somewhere else. But ignoring the signs does not change reality. It only keeps you trapped in an increasingly painful illusion. And even if there is no specific person, even if she is not talking to another man or planning to leave you, the practical result is the same. She has already left you emotionally. You are in a relationship alone, holding together something that only exists on paper. She stays for convenience, fear of change, social pressure, financial dependence, because of the children. For any reason except the one that truly matters, because she desires you and actively chooses you every day. That is the difference between a living relationship and a dead one. A living relationship has conflicts, challenges, difficult moments, but there is mutual desire, mutual effort, a willingness to be together. A dead relationship may seem peaceful because there are no more fights, but it is the peace of a cemetery. No one fights because no one cares enough to fight. There is only coexistence, mechanical routine, obligations fulfilled without soul. You need to ask yourself a question now, and answer it with brutal honesty. If she told you today that she feels nothing for you anymore and wants to end things, would you be devastated or secretly relieved? Because if even a small part of you would feel relief, that tells you everything you need to know. It means you also already know this is over. You are just afraid to face the truth and make the decision that needs to be made. The fear is understandable. Fear of being alone, of starting over, of admitting you invested years in something that didn't work, of disappointing family and friends, of facing social judgment. But there is a greater fear you should be feeling, the fear of wasting the best years of your life begging for love from someone who does not love you back. The fear of waking up 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and realizing that you sacrificed your happiness, your dignity, your chance to be truly desired by someone, because of insecurity and cowardice. Not every relationship can be saved. Some simply reach their natural end. And there is nothing wrong with that. The mistake is not the ending. The mistake is clinging indefinitely to something that has already died, out of fear of facing the unknown. The mistake is confusing persistence with dignity, patience with self-negation, love with emotional dependence. So what do you do now? How do you get out of this emotional trap that has been consuming you for so long? The answer is not what you expect to hear, but it is the only one that works. You stop trying to save the relationship and start saving yourself. Not as an ultimatum, not as a strategy to make her want you back, but as a real commitment to your own life and dignity. This begins with a radical internal decision. You accept that you cannot control what she feels or no longer feels for you. You cannot force desire where it does not exist. You cannot negotiate attraction. You cannot buy respect. The only power you have, the only one you have ever had, is over your own choices and actions. And from today on, you choose to stop lowering yourself. You choose to stop begging. You choose to reclaim the man you were before you lost yourself in this relationship. Start investing in yourself in a concrete and immediate way. Go back to the gym today, not tomorrow. Resume that project you abandoned. Call that friend you stopped seeing. Buy that course you always wanted to take. Set aside time for hobbies and interests that have nothing to do with her. Build a life so interesting, so full, so meaningful that her approval or rejection becomes secondary. Because when you have a life that satisfies you, you stop accepting crumbs from anyone. And here's what happens when you make this change genuinely: you become attractive again. Not necessarily to her, although that may happen, but definitely to yourself. And when you regain your own respect, when you start feeling valuable again, when you rebuild your confidence, one of two things will occur. Either she will notice the change, feel that she is truly losing you this time, and desire may return. Or she will remain indifferent, and you will finally have the clarity and courage to end what should have ended long ago. But there is a part of this transformation that no one talks about, and that is absolutely critical. You need to be willing to truly lose her. Not as a bluff, not as emotional manipulation, but as a genuine acceptance that this relationship may not be salvageable. Because while you are terrified of the possibility of losing her, while that threat paralyzes you, you will never be able to truly reposition yourself. You will continue giving in, accepting, lowering yourself. Freedom only comes when you understand that being alone is not the worst-case scenario. The worst-case scenario is wasting years of your life in a relationship without desire, without respect, without reciprocity. The worst-case scenario is looking back a decade from now and realizing that you had the chance to start over, To find someone who truly desires you, but chose to stay out of fear and insecurity. That is the real nightmare. Now, if after this transformation she starts showing interest again, you have a difficult decision to make. Because it is not always worth rebuilding something that was so deeply broken. You need to honestly evaluate, did her desire return because you truly changed and she now sees you with different eyes, or did it return only because she realized she might lose you and wants to maintain control? There is a huge difference between these two situations. If she starts seeking you out again, observe the behavior, not the words. Is she truly making an effort to rebuild emotional and physical intimacy, or did she just make a few temporary concessions until you return to a position of submission? Is she investing in the relationship, or just doing the bare minimum to keep you there? Because if you return to the old pattern of begging and she returns to the old pattern of rejecting, nothing has been solved. You have only gained a few months of false hope before returning to the same hell. And if she doesn't change? If even with all your transformation she remains indifferent? Then you have your definitive answer. And that answer, as painful as it may be, is liberating. Because now you know there is nothing more to do. It is not your fault. It is not because you didn't try hard enough. It is simply because she no longer wants you, and there is no amount of effort or self-sacrifice that will change that. And you can finally leave without regrets, knowing you did everything you could. Ending a long-term relationship, especially when there is shared history, children, joint assets, is devastating. I won't romanticize it. It will hurt. It will be difficult. There will be nights when you question whether you made the right decision. But there is something worse than that temporary pain, the permanent pain of living for decades in a dead relationship. The pain of looking at your partner and feeling only indifference, resentment, or contempt. The pain of realizing that you chose security over happiness, and now it is too late to change. The most important lesson you can take from all of this is not about how to win a woman back or save a relationship. It is about dignity. It is about understanding that you deserve to be desired by the person you are with. You deserve to be actively chosen every day, not merely tolerated. You deserve to be in a relationship where there is mutual effort, not one where you are the only one carrying everything on your back while the other watches passively. And if you are going through this right now, if you recognized your situation in every paragraph of this text, let me give you the final truth. You already know what you need to do. You always have. You were just afraid to admit it. Afraid to act. Afraid to face the unknown. But the unknown, as frightening as it may seem, carries possibilities that your current situation will never offer. The possibility of starting over. Of finding someone who truly desires you. Of building a healthy relationship from the ground up with someone who chooses you as much as you choose them. You were not born to beg for love. You were not born to settle for crumbs of affection. You were not born to live invisible within your own relationship. You deserve more. And as long as you do not deeply believe that, as long as you do not internalize your own value, you will continue accepting less than you deserve. So if you made it this far, if you listened to everything that was said and are still here with me, do one thing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And more importantly, leave a comment saying which city or country you are watching from and tell me, will you have the courage to change, or will you continue accepting a life without desire, without passion, without reciprocity? Because the choice was always yours. She may have taken her desire away from you, but no one can take your dignity except you yourself. And today, right now, you decide whether you will keep giving it up or finally reclaim it.